Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome into the Volquest podcast. I'm Eric Kane with Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, and Rob Lewis. Appreciate you guys for being here. Starting your Tuesday with us as we recap a little bit of Tennessee and Texas A&M, but more importantly, looking ahead to the third Saturday in October. That's Alabama and Tennessee. Go ahead and hit this thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. Let's get this video to 500 likes. Appreciate you guys for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But more importantly, Brent Hubbs, what a great time. What a great offer this week. A third Saturday in October sale at Volquest.com to see all the awesome premium content we have.
Yep, no better time to check us out. You can get a year for half price as part of this big game special. So be sure and jump in and get signed up and check out what all we're doing at Volquest beyond just the podcast that you can find in all your podcast distribution outlets, including YouTube as well. But if you sign up, you'll see all of the things that we do on the message board, all of other premium content out there as well. We got a ton of things planned for this week, getting ready for this game, and obviously had a ton of coverage coming out of that Texas A&M win.
So take advantage of that awesome deal this week only at Volquest.com. And as always, big thank you to Exterior Home Solutions for making this coverage possible. If you need roofing, siding, windows, or garage, contact Exterior Home Solutions today. They've been local and trusted since 1999. Give them a call at 865-524-5888. You can always visit them online, exteriorhomesolutions.com. All right, let's reflect a little bit. I know we did on the Rocket Top Rewind and all that before we transition to what Josh Heupel and players said Monday. But let's talk about that Texas A&M game. Again, a couple days out, Austin Price, passing game, struggled immensely. But, man, Tennessee ran the football. Tennessee stopped the run. Tennessee played well defensively. Tennessee scored a special teams touchdown. Tennessee played a really good ball game, albeit couldn't throw the football. But everywhere else, Tennessee played a pretty stout ball game.
Yeah, 100%. And, Tennessee's got to figure out the passing game. They've got to figure out how to – I'm not saying they got to throw over 300 yards, but they can't throw for 100. They've got to be in that 2 to 250 range that Joe's been in most of the year. And if they do that and can continue to run the ball, I mean, since Cooper's back, they're averaging 237.5 yards on the ground. And Brandon was pointing out to us outside of the thing, and I really hadn't thought about it. When you take away penalties and you take away sacks, I mean, Tennessee nearly ran for 300 yards against the stoutest run defense in the nation. With Cooper at the center spot. I mean, I just feel like that, he's getting them in and out of things, and the communication will be key this week on the road at Alabama.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that's where it starts. You got to avoid those pre-snap penalties that plagued them at Florida and that have plagued them on the road. Tennessee's got to handle that part of it well. And Rob, I don't want to sell the offensive line short in any way, shape, or form, but the running backs in this run game are playing at a level we haven't seen a whole lot of running backs play at Tennessee in the last few years. I mean, those guys are playing really well, starting with Jalen Wright.
Yeah, Jalen Wright's been sensational. I mean, going back to the summer, I know AP was probably the first one that was banging the drum that he had a great all season. People were the buzz that he had created over in the building with the work he had done, and that man he has proven that to be the case. I mean, he's leading the SEC in yards per attempt at 7.2, which 6 games into the year those aren't fluff numbers anymore. I mean, you're not just that 7 yards a carry isn't a result of just playing a bunch of non-conference patsies. I mean, he got it done this week against Texas A&M. The way it just seems like he's to the second level almost every time. And I mean, he had 19 carries last week, and 8 of them went for 10 plus yards against the best run defense in the SEC. I mean, that's a pretty robust stat right there.
I want to go back, and it's something that I guess Brent just said a moment ago, and it'll be a theme of this week. We'll continue to talk about it as the week goes on, but this is something that was asked to Josh Heupel and Cooper Mays on Monday. And remember, Cooper Mays didn't play in that Florida game where Tennessee had a lot of pre-snap penalties and all that. But you go back to November of 2022, I mean, Tennessee struggled on the road. Athens, Georgia, Columbia, South Carolina, and then the Swamp earlier this year. I don't count Vanderbilt or the Orange Bowl. How do you alleviate some of those pre-snap penalties? How do you get better in that regard and not let that be a theme going to Tuscaloosa this weekend? Here's what Josh Heupel and center Cooper Mays had to say about limiting the crowd noise and those pre-snap penalties.
End of the day, we got to do a great job of communicating. You got to focus on your job and be dialed into that. It's 11 on 11 when you're inside the line. So, we've continued to work that. Believe we'll be ready for it when we hit game day.
Yeah, just doing our job at a high level. I think if you look at all those things that went wrong in that game, a lot of it was self-inflicted. So just going out there, being ready for the moment, and just having clear communication, even when it's loud out there, just doing our jobs at a really high level. It just differs kind of on the environment. Basically, for cadence, they'll do some silent count stuff if it's going to be a loud environment, and then just different facets of snap count, and if it's going to be verbal on the hands or silent, not much, but kind of stuff like that in third down. If you went to your everyday job and somebody put a speaker right next to your head and it was about as loud as it got, you probably wouldn't be very good at your job. So that's just the challenge. It's an added level of chaos a little bit.
I like there at the end, Austin, he says, hey, he's not being a smart aleck. Like, he's just trying to tell you what it's like. You put a speaker in somebody's ear and say, hey, do your job. It'd be a little difficult. But the fact of the matter is, you go on the road in the SEC, that's what you're going to get. And so how do you overcome that challenge, Austin, this week for Tennessee? And it's something that's not done too well the last couple of trips.
I don't know. I don't think, and I don't think you'll know till Saturday. I mean, it's not like they don't pipe in the crowd noise over there at practice and try to make it as, simulated as possible. They do that, and they've done that. Every coach has done that that's ever been here. But until you go out there and prove it, I think you have to wonder in the back of your mind, can Tennessee go through a game and have a limited, and they're going to have some pre-snap penalties. That's going to happen anytime you're on the road. Can they have limited pre-snap penalties? And I just don't know what you can do outside of just continuing to work your silent counts, all those type of things, and practice, and then get see it happen in a game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, and again, Georgia last year was as loud of an environment as Tennessee's played in. I think Florida this year was loud, but I think that was more of a product of Ollie Lane playing center for the first time on the road.
Yeah.
You go back to that South Carolina game. I mean, they had 7 penalties for 60 yards in that game, but they put up 500 yards of offense. It wasn't like they were just – the defense was the issue there, and that wasn't necessarily crowd noise affecting them that way. So we'll see. I mean, I think having Cooper back is a big deal. Joe's just got to operate fast, and your tackles have to, everybody's just got to be locked in, as Cooper said. I think you have to be careful, Eric, to not make it too big of a deal if you're Josh Heupel. I think there's a fine line in, hey, getting your team ready, pipe in the crowd noise, do all the things, as opposed to getting everybody so worked up about it that it gets into your mind a little bit about, how bad the crowd noise affected you the last time you played, that kind of stuff. I think there's an interesting line to play there if you're the coaching staff.
Yeah, I think so too. Again, you prepare, as Austin said. I mean, this is not new. This isn't, this week of practice with it being super loud over there. I mean, this has been the same way since Heupel's been here for the last 3 years. It's happened with other coaches. Prepare that way, but don't make that the theme. The theme needs to be continuing to run the football, playing your brand of football and getting back to taking some shots and connecting down the field and playing that brand of Tennessee football under Josh Heupel. Rob, to do that, and again, the overarching theme, is Joe Milton quarterback play. Josh Heupel was asked about the confidence of Joe Milton, kind of how to get him going again. Here's what the head coach, Josh Heupel, had to say about Joe Milton Monday at the press conference.
When you don't play your best football, you got to be able to wipe it clean. When you play your best football, you got to be able to wipe it clean too. And at the end of the day, have a routine that takes you to kickoff so that you are putting yourself in a consistent position to go play your best. Joe's been really mature in how he has prepared. There's some things fundamentally that he's done really well that he didn't do in the last one. We got to be a little bit better in the pass game. That's him. That's the wideouts. It's everybody.
So, Rob, I mean, you saw it right there. Josh Heupel's going to say that's him. It's the wideouts. It's the coaches. It's everybody. End of the day, 11 to 22, 100 yards, got to be better than that. So, you're the coach, man. How do you fix that? This $1 million question, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you can. I mean, we're 6 games into his sixth year of college football. I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot, out there that I don't think there's any rocks out there that Josh Heupel hasn't looked under as far as Joe Milton's development. And I think it's at this point in the season, it's his limitations, I think, are clearly, affecting, the play call and the way Josh is going about managing the game. But I think it's kind of fascinating too, though, for the first time ever, he's got a ground game he can lean on. He can play field position. He can play defense, but he doesn't have that explosive passing game. And I think it's really interesting to see how Coach Heupel is kind of navigating this, because the makeup of the team is completely different. The strengths and weaknesses of the team are completely different than what they've been the first 2 years. And, the passing game does have to be better if they're going to be competitive this weekend. If they're going to be competitive against Georgia, but they're still 5-1, and they're finding a way to get it done. To me, Milton's just got to do the little things. I think he's got to be able to hit the little slants. He was good against South Carolina. He threw behind multiple times on little short, keep the chains moving throws. And the big one, the overriding one, the interceptions. The last 2 weeks he's just been fooled into a pick where he just flat out didn't see the safety in the middle of the field, and that's that's where safeties hang out. That shouldn't be a surprise. For a guy that's this deep into his college career. The one against South Carolina gave South Carolina 7 points. The one against Texas A&M took at least 3 points off the board for Tennessee, coming in the end zone, and maybe more. So, at this point in time, I'm not looking for a miracle. If I'm Josh Heupel, make the easy throws. Don't throw in double coverage.
And you're right. I guess that's how I should have phrased it, Brent, because I guess what I should have said was, and Rob kind of hit on that, watch the safety, make the easy throws, stuff like that. How do you not let your play calling from your head coach be affected by your play? Because clearly in that second half, the play calling was affected because there was a lack of trust or at certain situations in the passing game.
Well, I think part of that depends on how the game is going. I was dumbfounded that Josh Heupel threw the football on the last field goal possession that Tennessee had after the Judy Lawley interception. Given where you were at, you wanted a touchdown to put it away, but get your points there. I think if you talk about play calling, how does it affect play calling? It's going to affect it in two areas with Joe Milton. And I think this is, if you're keeping a stat track on Saturday to watch, it's how aggressive are they throwing the football in the red zone? Because what happens in the red zone? Tighter space, smaller windows, AP. You have to make quicker decisions. The ball's got to get gone in a hurry in the red zone. So how does Tennessee play the passing game in the red zone? And then secondly, how many times do they throw over the middle of the football field? Those are the two stats to me that tells you kind of where they think they are with this passing game and with Joe Milton. Now, maybe that's not fair to say, but those will be the two stats I'd keep an eye on Saturday, or two things I would keep an eye on Saturday to tell you really kind of what kind of confidence they have in this passing game right now.
Yeah, I think you have to you have to look at those areas, and I think that using Joe's legs at this point, I think that's got to be part of it. We talked about that on the Rocky Top Rewind a little bit. Whether it's 5, 6, 7 design runs, whatever it is, do something with him. They've done a little bit with that with him. They had the option play the other day. He made the nice read. They did a couple of, delays where he takes the snap back, so he's going to drop back and then takes off running. And those didn't go for much. But again, that keeps the defense honest. And I think eventually if you're able to have enough success with it, then, if you act like you're going to run one of those plays and then actually drop back and throw a pop pass or whatever, it may go for a decent chunk of yardage. If the receiver catches it, unlike Saturday when Ramel Keaton missed that nice throw, lollipop throw to what should have been a touchdown or at least a big gain. So, I think getting Joe some confidence, and I think a lot of that just runs, hardcore into, using his legs some, because I think they're going to have to.
Yeah, I think they have to use his legs, Rob. I think the question is, are we going to see the Joe Milton legs that we saw in the second half where he's knocking linebackers out of the game and he's punishing for an extra yard here or there? Or are we going to see the guy who ran out of bounds in the first quarter and pulled up 2 yards short of the sticks? His legs have to be effective. I liked what he did with his legs in the second half because I thought he was much more aggressive with them than he was in the first half, Rob.
Yeah, I agree. Every little bit helps. It's got to be a part of this offense. And just like AP said, it doesn't have to be huge chunk plays. Just keep them honest. Give them something else to think about. Make the defensive end wonder on the zone read. So it's not he can't just crash down inside every single time. But Yeah, I mean, you look at Joe Benton and his physical ability, and it would seem pretty obvious that, hey, this guy's legs need to be a part of the equation. And I thought you saw that in the second half against Texas A&M, and hopefully, that gives him some confidence. But I just don't, I don't think he's timid. I just don't think he's looking to run. I mean, I don't think he's timid at all. I don't mean to give that impression. I just don't think that's kind of his instinctual way of playing the position.
We'll transition into the third Saturday in October, Tennessee, Alabama. Of course, we'll have a complete preview from every different angle as the week goes on for that. We'll talk Tennessee, Alabama when we return, but a quick shout-outs and some more recruiting as well. A quick shout-out and a big thank you to our proud presenting sponsors of the Volquest podcast, that is Exterior Home Solutions.
It's one of those phone calls that you hate to get from your kids. Hey, Dad, a tree fell on my house. Well, we got that call a couple of weeks back from our daughter at her house here, and the first call that I made was to Exterior Home Solutions. The peace of mind that they gave me and us as a family when they came out here and came up with a plan, got us connected with the right people, is absolutely priceless. Use the same people that I use. In that time of need, Exterior Home Solutions.
As always, a big thank you to our friends Exterior Home Solutions for making this coverage possible. Tennessee 5-1, 2-1 in SEC play, and will now have a 2-game road swing, first at Alabama this weekend and then at Kentucky before coming back home. Tennessee, Alabama, we talked about Joe Milton, Tennessee's quarterback on one side. Let's look at the other quarterback, Jalen Milroe. They had a little musical chairs there at the beginning of the season trying to figure out which quarterback was going to be best. It's going to be Jalen Milroe. He is the starting quarterback, and Josh Heupel had a lot of good things to say about Alabama's starting quarterback and the differences and the confusions that he can create. Here's Josh Heupel about Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe.
A bunch of plays from inside of the pocket, pushing the football down the football field. His ability, if you don't have rush integrity to get out and make plays with his feet, is something that pops out on the tape. And then he obviously, like when the ball's in his hands and he's a part of the run game, he's dynamic. So he's somebody that you got to have bottled up, every snap. He's a dynamic playmaker.
So, Brent, are you doing what Texas A&M did to Alabama's offense? You stopping that run and saying, all right, Milroe, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us over the top, and give him credit. He did. He had a big day. Him and Jermaine Burton over the top, and he threw for 320 yards. Or do you have enough faith in your run defense overall right now that you kind of play more of your style and you dictate how you want to play Alabama and Jalen Milroe?
I think you play your style of defense, and that starts with stopping the run. Obviously, Tennessee wants to get teams in third and long situations and, be dynamic and be able to do some different things with coverages on the back end and that pass rush up front. I mean, it's going to start with stopping the run. Rob, I think that's the way Alabama wants to play. I think they want to try to make it as easy on Milroe as they can. They want to, much like Tennessee wants to avoid third and long, that's where Alabama wants to be. They don't want to be in any third and long situation. So I think stopping the run on early downs, trying to get Alabama into some obvious passing situations where your defensive line can tee off and go is where Tennessee wants to go. I don't think they suddenly change anything schematically compared to what they've done the last couple of weeks, or really since the Florida game.
No, and Hubbard, I don't think they have to with this Alabama offense. I mean, it's not like they've just been, lining up and running it down people's throats. I mean, they're middle of the road. I mean, they're not even averaging 4.0 yards per carry. Texas A&M. I mean, and Texas A&M did kind of load the box a little bit, but they really stuffed them. And I'm with you. If I'm Tennessee, I don't just totally shift gears and do something different this game. I mean, Alabama's going to have to prove to me that they can, run the ball if Tennessee's, playing with two high safeties and not really overcommitting themselves that way. And just, frankly, they have not, been just a bully ball, team that's been able to do that.
Look at this Alabama offense. As you said, Rob, very middle of the road. Scoring 30 points a game. Scoring 30 points a game. That's ninth in the SEC. That's how football changed, right? 367 yards of total offense on average. That's 10th. 219 yards through the air. That's 10th. 148 yards. That is 8th. This offensive line, though, they got some name power on that offensive line, giving up 31 sacks. They've scored 12 touchdowns and 20 red zone trips. Austin, what you don't want, though, and we spoke with Tim Watts at Bama Online on the Rocky Top Rewind, what you don't want is Milroe to kind of have a Matt Corral, kind of have a Bryce Young back in 2021. He's not looking to run, but he can, and he's got 5 rushing touchdowns. You don't want that phase of his game to take over this game where you play pretty good defense.
Yeah, you have to keep him corralled. He's going to make some guys miss. He's going to move around in the pocket. The question is what's his accuracy like, when he's not on platform, when he's on the run. Bryce Young was phenomenal at keeping the eyes up and making plays down the field. I don't think Milroe is as good as that, right? I mean, he doesn't throw it as well as Bryce Young did. He throws the deep ball extremely well, but he gets erratic, outside of that. So, for my liking, you just got to keep him in front of you. You cannot let him get loose. You've got to do a good job of tackling and all that stuff, will be a key part in the football game, because I think yards after contact for Milroe will be something you have to watch, because if Tennessee gets a hand or a finger or whatever on him, they've got to get him down, because the more you let him run around back there, the harder it's going to be to defend him.
Yeah, it's that play right there that had Nick Saban all in a tizzy after the game, trying to say Nats on a mule's ass or whatever with DJ Jefferson throwing KJ Jefferson throwing that guy off. Anyway, Brent, you look at this Alabama front seven. There's no Will Anderson, but you still have Dallas Turner. You got Braswell on the other side. They're getting after the passer as well. But if you're Tennessee, you look at that front seven overall compared to what it's looked like the last couple of years. Is there some confidence there to continue to run the football and play your brand of football?
Well, I mean, this is going to be Tennessee being who Tennessee is, and this is not a team that needs to throw it 45 times Saturday. If Tennessee's throwing it in the 40s on Saturday, then it's probably not going real well for them, unless they've uncovered the magic formula to a passing game that you haven't seen yet. So, yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee's got high belief in their run game. This is an Alabama team that is Dallas Turner's a really good player, and I think they've gotten better on defense. I think they're better in the secondary than they've been, so they can commit more guys to the box. But Tennessee's spread offensive attack, Rob, just works. You know what I mean? It's like you keep looking up, and Tennessee's going for 7 or 8 yards. They're getting these gash lanes, and the double teams are working. And I think Tennessee's got to keep the field spread, as wide as you can, and try to get Alabama's defense as spread out as you can get them, and then go attack them that way. Much the same way they did a year ago. Tennessee ran the football very well against Alabama last season, and I think Alabama's rush defense was better a year ago than it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're giving up a little over 100 yards a game, but also in SEC play, they've not played, a juggernaut. I mean, A&M's okay on the ground. Mississippi State, is indifferent pretty much about the run game. So, I mean, they're good, but not like what they have been in years past, where, with the Quinnen Williams and some of those kind of interior defensive linemen. They don't have that kind of personnel in the middle. And, I'm with you. I mean, Tennessee's got to lean hard on it this week. I mean, I think if Tennessee's going to go down there and pull the upset, I mean, I think they're going to have to be close to their average, which is 230 yards a game on the ground right now. I mean, that's a big ask, but I think that's reality. And I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility when you see what they just did to Texas A&M.
We'll have our score predictions. We'll have keys to the game and all that as the week goes on. But also, kind of closing this conversation, easy answer is obviously Joe Milton. He's got to play better, Tennessee run game. But give me somebody or give me some phase of Tennessee's game that needs to come to play Saturday for Tennessee to have this pull off this upset and on the road.
I'm going to go with Ramel Keaton. He's Tennessee's most veteran receiver. He's their most consistent receiver. I don't know if it's putting that number 80 back on. I keep making that joke because I thought it was funny, and why not? I mean, but he needs something to get him going. Ramel is a kid that I think really goes on confidence, and right now I don't think he's got a whole lot. He's an extremely hard worker, so you can bet he's going to be hitting the jugs every day in practice. But he needs something to go right early, Hubbard, to kind of get the mojo flowing a little bit for him, because right now the kid that's dropped a couple of easy ones this year looks a lot different than the kid that made that laying out against Florida diving catch last year.
Well, and he caught the first pass in the 2-play drive for the game winner against Alabama last year on a really took a big shot when he got hit there. I think
by the way, but not to interrupt you, no one ever talks about the worst spot in the history of. You talk about how bad officials are. He gets hit, goes to the 48, and they mark it back at the 50. One of the worst spots of all time, but no one ever talks about it because Tennessee won the game. But anyways, keep going.
Don't get me started on officiating. We don't have enough time in this podcast for that, because there's a lot of things I don't understand about what's going on, what's a penalty and what's not a penalty, particularly when it comes to pass interference. But I digress. I do think that you've got to get – Eric, I think you got to throw something easy for Ramel Keaton early, whether that's a screen, whether that's a slant. You need to get something to kind of get him going and get him into the flow of a game. Now, some would say, well, you threw him an easy one and he dropped it, which is true. I mean, you did. But I just think you got to try to find a way to get him going a little bit in this game and get his confidence back. That's where Joe has had the most confidence. That's the guy Joe's had the most chemistry with. But they're off right now, and I think part of that's because Joe's off and has not been consistent enough, and obviously Rob has just not recovered from that drop at Virginia in the opening. He had a wide open touchdown there and he dropped that one, and he's kind of been in a funk ever since. I mean, he's had some moments here and there, but nothing like we thought Ramel Keaton would be this fall.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I thought his numbers would be. I just thought he would be it's not looked like I think we all thought it would be, just Mr. Steady. Whatever, you never know how many opportunities are coming your way, but Ramel has certainly developed a reputation over the past couple of years, a guy who's going to take advantage of those opportunities, and that has not been the case. And man, I mean, AP is right. I mean, would Brew out, a quarterback, I mean, he may be a veteran, but I'm not sure how much confidence he's playing with right now. I mean, you need a guy at wide out like Ramel that you can lean on.
Yeah, and I'll say this, Eric, I thought Chaz Nimrod looked like he belonged out there on Saturday. I know he didn't get a ton of opportunities, but I liked what he did in really his first extensive playing time. I mean, the catch he made on the first third down was a really nice catch to open the game, to start that game for Tennessee. So, I mean, I think that's a positive takeaway from the passing game, that maybe you can build something there with Joe Milton and him, because I thought he was pretty good on Saturday.
I do too. He tied for the team lead in targets with 6 with Squirrel White. I thought he looked really good, and I heard Jason Swain say on the radio earlier this week, as he grows and matures and gets older, he's got to learn not to let those DBs throw him around a little bit. But for his first start, Southeastern Conference play, I agree with you. I thought he looked pretty good. Let's wrap this thing up by talking a little recruiting. Austin Price, there's a lot of guys that were on campus this past weekend. The headliner, of course, a couple commits in this committed class, but the headliner looking ahead to the class of 2025, quarterback from the Mid-State in George McIntyre.
Yeah, I mean, George, trying to kind of feel his way through the process. He just released his top 10. Josh Newberg asked me on Sunday, kind of what do you think the timeline is? And I said somewhere between December and February. I mean, that's when quarterbacks come off the board. That's most likely going to be the case. And, you look at George, I mean, LSU, Alabama, he has some weird infatuation with UCLA. He's going to go out there at the end of the month for the Colorado game. Obviously Tennessee, Georgia's trying to take a swing there, but I still think it's Tennessee, and don't pay attention to the RPM. That's, again, that's wrong. I'm not saying that Alabama's not the favorite. I'm not saying Tennessee's the favorite. I'm not saying anybody's the favorite. I'm just saying 80% Alabama is just wrong. But you look at George, I mean, the kid plays everything close to the vest. If you're trying to read anything that he says, and that's why I told Newberg put a crystal ball in, because he tried to interpret what he said when he had him in studio. Like, if you're trying to interpret anything George says and kind of figure out what he's thinking, you're going to fail. I'm going to fail. Everybody's going to fail. That kid's tough to read. He has got a poker face like no other. And, I think that's, works to his advantage in the recruiting process. But he's all about relationships. His best relationship continues to be Tennessee's head football coach, Josh Heupel.
A couple of important defensive linemen also on campus this past weekend. Of course, you had a Missouri commit. You had Jordan Ross, who's obviously a Tennessee commit on campus. Look at 2025. You have Ethan Utley from Innsworth on campus. Rodney Gardner, obviously playing a lot of guys, a lot to show those guys when they're in here to watch a football game.
Yeah, with the Williams kid from Florida, I mean, I think he'll be back for an official visit sometime either November or December. I think Tennessee's still working through that exact date, but he was really impressed by everything. Obviously, Jordan Ross told us after the game that, he continues to feel really good about his decision to Tennessee. And, Then you got a guy like Ethan Utley in the 2025 class, who again has got a long time relationship with Rodney Garner because his mom and Coach G knew each other when she was at Georgia and he was at Georgia, and that Tennessee's deep in that one for the Ensworth product.
We mentioned Jordan Ross, but some other commits, Braylon Staley being one of them. How important was those guys to get back on campus, to see a win, to see the environment, to see what they're about to be a part of?
Braylon was just here for the South Carolina game, so he saw the environment for that. But again, getting him back over here every week's a good thing, right? I mean, if he's here, he's not anywhere else. So,
yeah.
I think the more you can get the committed guys here, the better.
And then looking ahead to Alabama, I know obviously Tennessee's going to be on the road, but any word on if any Tennessee targets are going to be in Tuscaloosa to see Tennessee and Alabama?
I think Daniel Hill may be there, for that game. If I'm Tennessee, I want George McIntyre at that game because, again, George watched Alabama play in person, whether it be on the road or at home 4 times in the last year, and they've lost 3 of them. So if I'm Tennessee, I want George there. There'll be a lot of 25s and 26s that'll be at Alabama. But as far as 24s, Daniel Hill, I think, might be the only one.
All right, it'll be Tennessee and Alabama, and of course, plenty of recruiting talk coming off the Texas A&M win at Neyland Stadium for this past weekend. And Brent Hubbs, whether it's recap from Texas A&M, looking ahead to Alabama, content, video, podcasting, we got literally it all over at Volquest.com, and it's a big game sale on right now for the third Saturday in October. You can get $1 for 1 month, or more importantly, 50% off an annual subscription to Volquest.com. No better time, Brent, to join us over at Volquest.
Absolutely. And, you hear us talk about it all the time. You wonder what it is. There's no better time to check it out, to get it at half price for a year for the rest of this football season and into next football season, with where this program is, with where baseball's at. Basketball is in the top 10 in the preseason rankings. There's a lot of things going on in a positive way with Tennessee right now. A lot of fun stuff to talk about, a lot of fun things to write about. A lot of great things to cover, and we're going to do our best to cover it all for you, from recruiting to hoops to baseball to football. There's only one place you need to stop and shop, and that's at Volquest.
The standard for Tennessee coverage: football, recruiting, hoops, baseball, everything else. That is Volquest.com. Join us over here this week and get ready for the third Saturday in October. For Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, Rob Lewis, I'm Eric Kane. As always, a special shout-out to Exterior Home Solution for making this coverage possible. If you need roofing, siding, windows, or garage, contact Exterior Home Solutions today. A free estimate. It's at 524-5888, or visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Appreciate you guys, as always, for being here. We'll be back for the Mailbag Podcast on Thursday. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, everybody.